Hello there. In the comments of a recent video, I was made aware of a historical recipe for leather armor. In today's video, we are going to be testing it. Special thanks to all those people who pointed it out to me. I'm going to begin by reading the recipe in its entirety. Take leather that is half tanned and dry him, and shave the flesh side, and take glue with water, and set it over the fire, and melt it with water. And then all hot lay it upon the leather on the flesh side, and strew thereon the powder of glasce, beat in a brasene morter, with filings of iron, melded together, and then lay another piece of the same leather flesh side to flesh, and nail him to the scylde, and let him dry, and there neither spear nor edged tool enter therein. Let's talk about this very briefly. The glue they're mentioning is almost certainly hide glue. I don't know of other glues that are prepared in that way. It doesn't specify how thick the hide glue should be made, so I used a fairly middling consistency. Next, it says that the powder should be strewn upon the leather. I find this odd, as it means you'll only get a very thin layer of powder in between. With the sand-reinforced leather armor that I've tested, the sand should be built up layer by layer over the course of several days. Next, we see that the glass should be prepared in a brass mortar. This doesn't seem important to me, so I'm neglecting it. Next, it says that the glass and iron should be mellyd together. I'm interpreting this as melded, as in mixed, but melted might be a slightly less likely interpretation. For the iron filings, I'm using the dust that collects underneath my bench grinder. This is mostly iron, but there's probably a bit of copper in there and a bit of the powder from the wheel. I also threw some crushed mill scale in there for good measure. I decided not to use powdered glass, as the last thing I need is glass dust in my lungs and eyes. I substituted it for sand. Here's a little drip that I put some powder on. The test panel will have this sort of thickness doubled. Finally, nail him to the scylde and let him dry. This might literally mean a scylde, or it might mean some sort of form. In any case, I'm substituting it for a sheet of plywood. And it claims to be proof against spears and edged tools. Those are bold claims. Let's see how it holds up. One final thing I'd like to say is that this recipe seems to me like an inventor describing his recent work. I don't think this was the usual recipe. Most of the time you don't bother writing down the usual way to do things, you just say do it in the usual way. For example, I don't know of any period texts that give step-by-step instructions on how to make plate armor. But enough talk, on with the test. The arrow penetrated the armor by about 1/16 of an inch. Even thin clothes worn under the armor would have been able to stop this. The arrow cut the string holding the panel to the bale. I'm always amused at how often nonsense like this happens. The bodkin arrow bounced off, dealing next to no damage. The broadhead arrow penetrated the first layer of leather, but didn't make it into the second. The powder did its job here. Again, the bodkin arrow bounces right off. And again, the broadhead arrow fails to enter the second layer. Again, the bodkin arrow bounces cleanly off. Let's survey the damage. Only one of the broadhead arrows made it all the way through, and it only made it through by a hair. The bodkin arrows left some little square dents, but nothing severe. I think I can say conclusively that this style of construction is proof against arrows from my hunting bow. The recipe specifically mentions spears, so let's give it a try. The spear penetrated by about 1 inch. It wouldn't be pleasant, but you'd live. This time the spear penetrated by about 3 inches. The armor by itself wouldn't save you. Less than 1 inch this time. That's pretty good. About 2 inches this time. That's probably survivable. Again, about 2 inches. Not good, but better than it going all the way through. A little bit over 1 inch this time. Here the spear struck where the leather is only one layer thick and penetrated very deeply. These repeated impacts have caused the two layers to delaminate. So, all in all, this panel performed reasonably well. Not as well as it claimed to perform, but pretty well. I'm going to try modifying the recipe, see if I can get some better results. Expect that in a few days or weeks. Until then, though, thank you for watching. Goodbye.